we're going to create a fake film edge look to the image we just created in the Holga process. So to do that, there are 4 basic steps. We'll open a new canvas with our image as a layer over top of a white background. Then we're going to make that image edge fuzzy. Then we're going to add a black layer underneath it so that it's a little bit bigger. And then we're going to create a white edge around our image. So we're going to start here with our Holgaized image here that we just created. Of course, this would work with any photograph if you wanted to make it pass it off as a hand-printed black darkroom image. It gives it a nice look to it. But for this project, we're going to just add it to the Holga steps. So here we're going to open a new canvas. And to do that, first thing I'm going to do is open my JPEG version of my image. So here it is. I'm going to select the whole thing. I use Command A or Control A, and I'm going to our handouts say cut it, but you can also copy it. And then we're going to go to File New, which is also Control F. It's going to give me a new file. No, I'm sorry, Control N, new file. I apologize, new. And in here, what happens is the image in Photoshop that is on our clipboard, we're aware of that sort of cyberspace clipboard that exists, whatever we've copied will then automatically, when I open a new file, be that same size. So the image I just selected, you can see it's quite small. It's 450 by 450 at 72 dpi. I can call it here Holga 1 Mrs. King, because you'll do this 2 different times. And I'm going to say OK. And now if I paste it, that image is in, and I've accomplished my first step, which here is my background layer with my image over top. If you look in your handouts, you can see that it should look just like this. Now that's our first step. Our second step is to create a fuzzy edge on this image. So we're going to press M. I'm going to select my marquee tool, or I say just click over here on my marquee tool, and then I'm going to set the feather. See up here in my options bar we have a feather. I'm going to set it to a number between 10 and 25. For a number, I use 25 for an image that is 2100 by 2100. We noticed that this one is small. It's 450 by 450. So actually I'm going to go below 10. I'm going to do 8. What it will do for those with the number 8 means is there will be 8 pixels that fade from solid to white. So I'm going to do that, and that's going to make my edge fuzzy by that number of pixels. If it's 25, it'll be 25 pixels. Now I'm going to draw a box with my rectangular marquee tool just inside the edge of my picture. Get it up just a little bit. There we go. And release. You can see my corners bent just the tiniest bit here. If the curve is really strong, you've chosen too many pixels to feather. If you can hardly see it, it is not enough pixels to feather. But better to have too few than too many. You just want a nice subtle curve there. But what you notice what I've selected is the inside of my image. What I want to remove is the outside. So to do that, there's 2 different ways I can do it. I can go under the select menu and go to inverse, but you notice it's shift here on my Mac. It's a command, but that would be control plus I. So I can choose my inverse. Now notice there are 2 lines here, and it's the area between them that is now selected. And I'm going to delete this 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice each time I do it, the edge gets a little bit tighter, gets a little bit less fuzzy, and it becomes a little bit more solid, and that differentiation between solid and white becomes clearer. Then we're done there. Now I'm going to add a black layer underneath it, and I want to fill it into the area that I just selected here, that area that's just behind the image. But I don't have that area selected. So I'm going to invert it again. This time I'll use the keyboard commands, Control, Shift, and the letter I. You can see it shifted. This is where things get confusing in your instructions. And then I'll do that, and I'm going to add a new layer. And I'm going to pull that underneath mine here. So if you look in your handouts and here on my screen, we have layer 1, layer 2, and my background. The little checkerboard here indicates that it's transparent. There's nothing there yet. So now I have this area selected. I'm going to choose my paint bucket tool. It often hides behind the gradient tool if you're looking for it. Mine was up because I had selected it recently. Typically it looks like this below the eraser. If I click and hold, paint bucket tool comes up. I'm going to choose black. You can also eyedropper select one of the dark values from your image. And with layer 2, the transparent layer selected, I'm going to fill the area inside my blinking marquee right now. Now you can see that area is filled. And I want it, but the black escaped beyond the edges of my selection. So here, I'm going to invert it again. And again, this time I'm only going to delete it 2 or 3 times so that a little bit of that black shows up. You can see no black, black. It becomes very subtle, almost like a continuation of our vignette. Now I'm going to select on level 2 and delete this. Control D is going to remove my marquee. So you can see that nice clean white edge with the little border of the fuzziness there. I'm going to make this look a little bit grainy, and we're going to do that by changing my layer style. And we're going to go under Bevel and Emboss. And we're going to set it as it's set into the handouts here. If you look, we're going to put it under Emboss. And our technique is smooth. My depth here, I'm going to do it about anywhere around here. I have it set, my handout has it set at 93. You can do that however you like. I'm going to set it right, mine jumped here to 95. I can type the number in 93 if I like. Oops, I went too far. I'm going to select it on there. If I click over here, it brings me back. If I select over on my menu, 93, my direction here is up. My size is 5 pixels. I'm not softening it at all. I have 120 degrees. I'm using global light. And my opacity is at 70%, and my shadow mode is under multiply, and I'm going to set that at 68%. You can see subtly here in the preview what this is actually going to look like. And when I'm done with that, it has created a very subtle texture along that border. The last part here is to create a white border around it. Typically, you want to give it about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And so what we'll do is we will select layers 1 and 2 holding the shift key. So I'm holding the shift key down as I click and select both layer 1 and 2. Coming up here to my move tool and the transform controls, I will scale both of those images in with the shift key, maintaining the aspect ratio or the proportions of it. Get it centered and click the checkbox there to select it, and you can see my image then has the 1/2 to 1 inch border around the outside. Now the last step is a bit optional. If I highlight my layer 1 and go into edit and transform, I can manipulate my image just slightly so it's not as perfect. I like to pull, this is the warp tool. I like to pull the edges in just the tiniest bit. Make sure you're on layer 1. This does not work well if you warp the black layer. But you can see, especially on this last corner, it creates this little bit of extra curve there where the image will peek, the black will peek out below the image. Say OK on that. And now my image has a little bit of irregularity. And you can follow along that optional step in your handouts if you like. Once we're done there, we will save it as a JPEG. And upload that to Google as you wish.